Welcome to the broadcast, my dear old fruits. It's wonderful to see you. And isn't it grand? It is the birthday of James, Earl of Wessex, today. He turns sweet 16, so I'm sure you will join me in wishing him many happy returns to the late Queen's grandson, nephew of our King. And in our hearts he will always be our little Jimmy Severn, won't he, my dears? No matter how he progresses as James, Earl of Wessex, he'll always be our little Jimmy Severn, I do think. And wasn't it cosy to see the teasers coming up of Charles III, the coronation year, which is going to be shown on Boxing Day. It's a 90-minute documentary with lots of behind-the-scenes glances at everything that went on during the coronation. It looks like there's going to be some very funny moments, some droll moments, and of course many moments of celebration, so I'm looking forward to that. And I've had some Christmas celebrations of my own over the last week or so, catching up with friends as you do, travelling around, going to various bits and bobs, and I've received my first 3 Christmas gifts, and one of them is this pear next to me, which I knew you would absolutely love. Isn't it gorgeous? I've told you so many times I'm very particular about pears, and as you know, it is the mascot or emblem of this channel, isn't it, my dear fruit drops? And there it is, looking so gorgeous. What a juicy golden pear with a sparkly green leaf coming out of it from a very dear friend of mine. And I also received some chocolate leaves from Fortnum and Mason, which were so divine. I'd love to say that I held on to them. I'd love to say that I shared them with all my loved ones, but I did not. I certainly did not, my dear. They were finished off within, well, 2.5 days. 2.5 days. What can I say? What can I say? It is the time, isn't it, for merrymaking, and that includes eating chocolate. And, oh yes, the other little gift that I received. Well, I don't know what you'll make of this one, my dear, but I think that we can use it whenever we have to refer to the Todger of Montecito, the one that has lost a certain pair of what we call Jacobs here in the kingdom. Jacobs is rhyming slang for knackers. Jacobs cream crackers are knackers, and knackers are balls. And we all know that Harry lost his pair, didn't he, my dear? But I think I've been gifted something of a life-size replica of those parts of the anatomy that we dare not imagine. Well, now you can imagine no longer, my dear, because here, by royal appointment to the bugler of Montecito and the king and queen of California. Oh, I am so sorry to have to show you this, my dear, but we have found the Duke of Sussex's missing pair of Jacobs. Oh, my dear. And no, I will not be wearing them as an earring or a brooch in future, I'm afraid. But I think we can have some fun with them here on the broadcast, don't you? Oh, dear. They've got a faint whiff of them about them as well, my dear. They're slightly ripe. Oh, Harold, my dear. You might have lost your balls, my dear, but we found them, didn't we? We found your Jacobs. Your Jacob's ladder. Well, rather Rachel than us, eh, my dears? Rather Rachel than us. She can chew on them as long as she wants, but we don't want them anywhere near us at Christmas or at any other time. Now, I've also taken a few clips for you, not very many, but some of you asked to see what London looks like this time of year. I just took a few clips in a little pocket of London, looking quite festive, around the Temple area of London and around St Paul's Cathedral, because I went to a celebration, a Christmas celebration, a carol service at St Paul's Cathedral last week, and I will share a little montage of the area surrounding St Paul's and a few other places towards the end of the broadcast. But for now, on with the show. Oh, and I should also mention that apart from my trainer studs, I'm wearing real earrings for the very first time on the broadcast. They're not especially fancy, just a little bit of Christmas star burst to the ears. But yes, these are the real thing at last. This ear still isn't fully healed, I've got to say, so I'm being very cautious about it, and they feel absolutely fine. So we shall see how things go over the next few months. But we're getting there, my dear. Patience is a virtue, isn't it? As Harry's been telling us, and which we'll look at in a moment. Well, what about your impatience, Harry? Don't get me started. First of all, his brother, the future king to this kingdom and all the other realms, visited the Britannia Royal Naval College in Dartmouth on behalf of the king. The parade saw 202 Navy cadets pass out with international officer cadets from Oman, Kuwait, Bangladesh and Trinidad and Tobago. His Royal Highness inspected the front rank of the Guard and Royal Marines Band of Plymouth and ranks of St Vincent, Hoe and St George Division. He was last seen in a naval uniform 13 years ago, so he's really kept us waiting, hasn't he? And he didn't disappoint, and in actual fact he's been taking applause for his handsome appearance and was highly praised for looking extremely sexy. Meanwhile, the other brother, the spare, the disposable one, summoned his bugler. The Duke and Duchess's bugler of Montecito was in gainful employment. He bugled his way into proceedings to announce the Christmas holidays, the holidays to the rest of the world on behalf of the office of Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Why are you still calling him Prince Harry? Yes, we know he's a prince, but we also know that he liked to be a man of the people. Just Harry, just hers. Down with the kids. Down with all types, but still, behalf of the office. The office, I ask you. Archewell Productions, Archewell Foundation, Arswipes Incorporated. Ha ha ha! Arswipes Incorporated of Delaware. We wish you a very happy Christmas. No, my dear. No, that is not politically correct, is it, my darlings? We wish you a very happy holiday season. A holiday season. Yeah, it's called Christmas, loves. It's called Christmas. Don't try and dress it up, darling, for atheists and everything beyond. Well, they can do as they will. They're not royal, so it doesn't bother me. And yes, if they want to tick off all bases, wonderful. But I'm sorry, how can they get away with calling it the holiday season? It is not holiday season for everyone. What about those who follow the major Islamic holidays of April and June sort of time? And then you have those celebrating Diwali back in November. And you have Buddhists and Sikhs also celebrating their major holidays in the spring. So to me, this seems a little bit exclusive and a little bit thoughtless, my dear. How can you generalise and say that this is the happy holiday season when there are so many of them? Ha ha! Racists. Terrible unconscious bias you've got there, my dears. It's terrible. We must address this subject of Harry's recent victory, where he won 15 out of 33 claims against Mirror Group newspapers for unlawful gathering of information. He was awarded 140 grand, as I'm sure you know, and he asked originally for £443,000. Well, the amount he's won is small change to Harry, small change, and I do understand that the legal costs that he is facing will outweigh that very meagre sum that he's been given. But I actually do believe, I've got to tell you, I do believe that Harry wanted vindication over money. He's got enough money. I think he was looking for vindication. Yes, he was fighting for more, coming up to $500,000, but that's not very much when you compare to what he is able to earn and what he has the potential to earn. All he has to do is release another book if he wants to make a few more million. So that's all small change to Harry. I do believe he wanted vindication. And as I continually said during the coverage of this case, if he was wronged, if his materials were hacked or unlawfully gathered, then he should be compensated and always had the right to desire a legal victory as opposed to a legal settlement. Now, as we know, Prince William received a settlement of £1 million from the publishers in 2020, and so that cannot be called a win in the same way as Harry. But I do feel that Prince Harry has also been rebuked in the remarks from the judge, who noted that Harry faced phone hacking to a modest extent and had a tendency to assume that everything published was the product of voicemail interception because phone hacking was rife within Mirror Group at the time, but phone hacking was not the only journalistic tool at the time. What is extremely vulgar is the pugnacious way that Harry todgers in immediately the verdict is announced, to todger in and control the narrative, to shape the narrative, and bask in the glow of a very partial, and some might say Pyrrhic, sort of victory. His vitriolic trumpeting is childish, and it is so vulgar. It is very much a todger on display moment. It's one of these, isn't it? Wafting in, I'm here, where's my bugler? I'm here to trumpet my big balls, as opposed to Big Willie, who was so weak in the face of legal proceedings that he settled. Here I am, look at my little tam o' shanty gathering. No, we don't want to look at it. Nobody wants it, apart from your wife. Ha ha ha! Apart from your wife. Slaying dragons was his big takeaway. Slaying dragons. Not William. Do you see, he wants to compare himself to Big Willie, the future king. He wants to compare himself to Willie, and even George, the future King George. It's usually George that slays the dragon, isn't it? But he wanted to be Henry, King Henry the Ninth, slaying dragons, doing what the real king should do. You know, I was the one that was born to be king. There was some sort of mismatch going on, something you're just waiting for me to come and take over. He's been slaying dragons, he says. What, Puff the Magic Dragon? Ha ha ha! Yeah, that's his kind of dragon, dearie. Puff the Magic Dragon. Lived by the sea. A land called Honolulu. Puff the Magic Dragon, darling. Do pull your trousers up and put it away, dear. Put that frostbitten todger away. Put those auburn balls away, because it's put me right off of my marmalade on toast. Lover boy. He said, "Today is a great day for truth, as well as accountability. The journey to justice can be a long and painful one, and since bringing my claim, almost 5 years ago, defamatory stories and intimidating tactics have been deployed against me and at my family's expense. In the face of vendetta journalism." You've got the temerity to call this vendetta journalism, while in tandem producing spare, besmirching your entire family, out of revenge. You speak about vendetta. You see, this is what annoys me about the boy. If he was wronged, then it is right that those wrongs should be compensated, if in time, if in jurisdiction. And he makes potent points about the integrity of the press. I'm sure there was a lot of mucky business going on. And I'm not casting aspersions at Piers Morgan in this particular instance, because I don't know exactly what went on. The judge believed Omid Scobie. What I do know is that I don't trust Piers Morgan either, as far as I can throw him. But the great shame is that no matter how potent the points are that Harry makes, they are all rather weakened by his own displays of misinformation. Leaking of private information. He does that. In my personal opinion, he does that by serving up to the world private moments between members of the royal family. People who he knows do not want that information shared. Well, he had no problem doing that. He has no problem doing that for the filthy lucre and for no other reason other than his own revenge. You can't really say that they are sterling values, can you? Sterling motivation. He cynically deploys his own form of merchandising and branding and commercialism. So, yeah, have it out with the press. Do as you will if they've treated you unfairly. Make your point. But it doesn't sit well with those of us who can sense the hypocrisy behind it. Today's ruling is vindicating and affirming. Oh, he's all puffed up, primed. I've been told that slaying dragons will get you burned. Who? Who told you that? Who's been telling you that slaying dragons will get you burned? I don't expect anybody who's ever said that to Harry, but in my opinion, he seems to be taking advice on how to represent himself from Wifey or Wifey's team using this literary device. It sounds like the kind of twee cliche that she might use. He's been told slaying dragons will get you burned. But in light of today's victory and the importance of doing what is needed for a free and honest press, what, the one that you're trying to shut down if they say something that you don't like? It is a worthwhile price to pay. The mission continues. Da-da. Oh, move over, Tom Cruise. We've got Mission Impossible coming along here, tottering along. And at the end, oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mic drop. Elvis has left the building and Harry's here. But on a serious note, congratulations, Harry. If you were wronged, then you deserve some small victories. And I don't begrudge them. I really don't. But don't be a hypocrite. Pull your trousers up and don't be so vulgar. The Duchess of Edinburgh, our golden trophy, Sophie, is patron of Disability Initiative in Surrey, and as such, she paid them a little visit, and they sang Christmas carols, and they enjoyed a performance by the Carers Choir. They pulled crackers, and she was awarded a special decoration, which declared the Duchess the world's best patron. Sophie shared a chinwag with staff and volunteers, and they had a bit of a boogie. It looks rather fun, doesn't it? And Sophie enjoys a bit of fun because she's been involved in a lot of serious and diplomatic engagements lately, so it's only right that she should have time to have a bit of a laugh and some rocking around the Christmas tree. Speaking of which, I've got to tell you that I was absolutely thrilled for Brenda Lee, and I've been watching quite a lot of her on YouTube lately. I've never really done a sort of binge-watching session of Brenda Lee until lately, but I've been enjoying it. I'm Sorry, and all the hits. I didn't realise how young she'd started. You know, Brenda Lee, at 78 years old as she is now, made it to number 1, didn't she, on Billboard, that song, Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree. It finally reached number 1 after 6.5 decades, something like that. What a feat, what a magnificent feat. I didn't realise that when she recorded it in 1958 that A, it didn't make the top 10 at the time, and also that she was only 13 years old when it was recorded. 13 or 14. Very, very young. You would never think it by the voice, would you? It's so mature. And I watched back at some vintage performances of her at that age doing it. She was so mature, had a wonderful quality to the voice, and she still has it. And I've been watching interviews and the new videos she made for it, and she's just charm, and she's just exactly what you want to see for Christmas at this time of year, sprinkling a little bit of magic, stardust. She is the oldest living person to make number 1 in America, and before her the oldest female was Cher, who released Believe at the age of 52. And if you take all genders, that's 2 by the way, into the equation, then Louis Armstrong was the oldest living person to make number 1 in 1964 with Hello Dolly. But that Brenda is an absolute tonic. Congratulations, my dear. And it just goes to show how delicious the spring season and the winter season can be, doesn't it, my dears? And everything in between. But how wonderful to be able to compare her from spring to winter and see so much vibrancy and joy and beauty and charm. I love it. And how many endless memories has that song given us all, my dears, over the years. How much nostalgia and memories and Christmassy magic moments. Wonderful. Queen Camilla brought her own brand of Christmas sparkle and Christmas cheer to Charlton Farm Children's Hospice on the outskirts of Bristol, and she handed out decorations from the Royal Collection Trust, including some soldiers in red tunics, little golden coaches, and a little replica crown, exactly the same as this one here, my dear. And some of those decorations are similar to ones such as my little orb down here, little roundels available from that Royal Collection Trust. So she handed them out to the little ones. Some were delighted, some looked more impressed than others. And then Her Majesty switched on twinkling lights on the Christmas tree, and the Queen has been patron of Children's Hospice Southwest since 2014, and this is a home from home for families with children with life-limiting or life-threatening conditions, allowing them to spend precious time together. But the Queen said she was shocked at the uplifting atmosphere of the place. 200 children there, obviously all of them are or have suffered in some way, but she said there's no sadness. It's an uplifting atmosphere, a place full of joy. Isn't that something to inspire us all and remind us what it's all about? As this little princess did in her blue gown and tiara, which again reminds me of the black-pink gown recently worn to the banquet. That blue dress, remember I found one just like it, which I will be wearing at some point in the future, and dress up as a little blue-gowned princess, just like this little girl. What fun. The Queen also took time to visit a charity for the homeless, of which she is also patron, and it's celebrating its 25th anniversary, and she was accompanied by Lord Lieutenant of Bristol and Peaches Golding, where she used a ceremonial sword to cut the cake, a Victoria sponge of course. She toured the warehouse where donated items are stored and recycled. She became patron in 2006, and we saw her having a thrifty rummage. This was a real fruity moment, wasn't it, my dears? Very River, very much a basketeer moment. She rummaged through all of the bric-a-brac and pieces and decided upon a decorative plate. And royalty don't need to carry cash, my dears, of course they don't, but I expect she couldn't resist flashing one of those orange grannies, as Diana and the boys used to refer to £10 notes. Here's an orange granny. Well, the Queen donated a bag of scrumptious chocolates and was presented herself with doggy bowls for her two Jack Russells, Beth and Bluebell. And Zara Tyndall made some handsome appearances at Cheltenham. First of all, she was seen in a grey knit blazer with a maroon headband. I don't recall seeing her in a headband for a while, but that was refreshing. And then again she was seen in a green coat with a beige roll neck, a black fedora and a brooch, platform ankle boots, and a Barbara Streisand smile to beguile. It was rather serious business for King Charles, who was attending a round-table discussion, hosting a gathering of community and faith leaders from all over the kingdom. This was in the Blue Drawing Room at Buckingham Palace, where he sat with representatives from faiths including Sikh, Hindu, Muslim, Christian and Jewish, to discuss ways to help them work together. And he was hailed as a convening power. Sounds like a barrel of laughs, doesn't it, my dear? What fun. Rather him than me. But he's certainly very well qualified to do it, if anybody is. Good luck with that. The King also paid a surprise visit to the Royal Courts of Justice. This visit was to recognise the works of the judiciary and its constitutional commitment to the rule of law. His royal presence honours the relationship between the judiciary and the Crown. The King surprised students from the Ashcroft Technology College who were taking part in a mock trial, and he viewed an exhibition celebrating women who have been trailblazers in the judiciary. His Majesty rounded off by joining a reception in the Painted Room, where he met with voluntary magistrates who give up their time to support the justice system. And I got to tell you, the timing was rather exquisite, because meanwhile I was trotting around some chambers of law in the middle of London, around the Temple area and around St Paul's Cathedral. Yes, as I mentioned, I attended a wonderful carol service at St Paul's Cathedral. It was truly magnificent. And the carols that were sung, I shall tell you, were Once in Royal David's City, O Little Town of Bethlehem, It Came Upon the Midnight Clear, In the Bleak Midwinter, The First Noel, O Come All Ye Faithful, and Hark the Herald. And there were also pieces from the choir. By the way, I wasn't allowed to record anything in there. I did break the rules. I did break the rules, but I'm going to think better of it, my dears. I do believe that, in a sacred place such as St Paul's, I want to abide by the rules, even though quite a few people there were taking footage, very blatantly as well. No one really seemed to mind, but I think I can't really project it all around the globe on my broadcast, although I'd like to, my dear, I really would. But there were choir pieces, there were solos, and the choir also sang We Wish You a Merry Christmas and The 12 Days of Christmas. There were some really raucous versions. You know, there was a full orchestra. They were fabulous. There were some readings by celebrities, if you will, the likes of Zoe Wanamaker. And for me, actually, it was an orchestra piece that stole the show. They did a version of Sleigh Ride, you know, the festive song Sleigh Ride, and it was fabulous. It was full of humour and personality and joyful moments. I really enjoyed that, I've got to say. The thing is, St Paul's is so cavernous in a way that you can't even really imagine, unless you've been there yourself, that the sounds, even though we were sitting at the front, the sounds are greatly diminished just by the size of the place. It's enormous. And just for those of you who don't especially follow royalty, you might not know that this is the place where Charles married Diana. So yes, we walked up those famous steps that were once cloaked with that rather unusual gown by the Emanuels. Yes, those famous steps. And of course, it's always been in my heart because it's so evocative of Mary Poppins flying over it with her umbrella. A very romantic piece of architecture, to my mind. Actually, I said to my friend, it's a female. I sense that it is a female building. And she thought the opposite. She thought that it had much of a masculine power. So perhaps it's gender neutral. Who knows, my dear. But lovely nevertheless. And before we went to the service, we had a wander around town and little pockets, including one that I don't remember going into before. And it is the Temple Church. And the Temple Church was built in 1162 to be London's Jerusalem in order to recreate the sanctity of Jerusalem in London. This is in 1162. This is how much our capital city quivers with history, my dear. This temple is steeped in the history of Christendom, this country, and the whole common law world. The Magna Carta was negotiated here. It is also, my American fruits, yes, you are looking at the birthplace of American law. This is where the first expeditions to America were planned, and 7 of America's founding fathers were trained here. It is the cradle of common law. Isn't that something? It is a royal peculiar in the Church of England, built by the Knights Templar for their headquarters, and it served as the royal treasury during the reign of King John in the 1100s and the 1200s, and it's surrounded by the Inns of Court, which are the bases of the English legal profession, and that is why it ties in so very conveniently with the King's visit to see the budding young lawmakers of London and the Kingdom earlier this week. And it was rather curious. The angels were looking down on us, my dears, because we were allowed to take footage there within the temple, but I didn't want to really overdo it. I don't like playing tourist, my dear, especially in a city that I know so well and have lived in for most of my life. But I did whip it out at a moment when I saw some figurines making up the nativity scene, I suppose, of the three magi, the wise men, because we had discussed it in the previous broadcast, hadn't we, in relation to Princess Michael's Moretto brooch, because I had told you that the dark-skinned princely figure on that brooch might have been inspired by Balthazar, and there he was, my dear, just after we'd been discussing it. So I took out my camera and I thought, I'll just take a little bit of that. And I took my camera out, I started recording, and then out of the blue, some music came, some strings, was it perhaps a cello? So one lady sitting in the pews started playing music. So I was able to capture a few moments of it for you, and I thought it was rather poignant. So I will leave you to enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next broadcast. Enjoy what's left of the weekend, my dears, and I will see you very soon. Take care, ta-ra, and toodle pip.